My favorite trope in fiction is the evil billionaire genius and his unhinged assassin lady. Hi, my name is Adriana, and today I will be doing a review of Map of Bones by James Rollins. This is the second book in the Sigma Force series, so if you have not read the Sigma Force series or have not watched my first review of the first book, then you should probably go back and watch that one and then watch this one. With that being said, a quick synopsis of the Sigma Force series as a whole. It follows a group of trained operatives who work under DARPA department. I think it's Department of Advanced Research, something, military, whatever. So the Sigma Force is a specialized unit within that, and it is their job to protect any emerging technology in America or across the globe from getting into the wrong hands. Because these operatives are dealing with such highly technological things, they themselves are highly trained in the sciences. So basically what we're dealing with is scientists with guns. And it's just a good time. Just a good blockbuster action film of a time. As I had mentioned, this is the second installment in the Sigma Force series, and this one specifically introduces a new main spy guy, Commander Pierce, and he is called to Germany to investigate a strange burglary slash massacre at a Catholic church. So that's about all as much as I want to give synopsis-wise to avoid spoilers. I'll delve a little bit more into the goings-ons of this book as I delve into characters and the science slash history portion of this book as a whole. But as far as synopsis, I think that kind of is our inciting incident and where we will go from here. I don't think I've mentioned it in this video yet, but this was a reread for me. I've read the entire series up to the most recent installment. I wanted to go through and reread because I haven't read these kind of beginning ones in like 10 years. And characters, obviously a big deal for me because a lot of these characters continue on through the entirety of the series. And the first one, there was really only one character in that book that we see in the rest of the series. This one, we get introduced to a lot more of our characters. We basically almost get the entire cast in this book. So that made it a little more fun for me to be with these characters that I had seen in the later books. But jumping into the specific characters, I'll start with now director Painter Crow. So he was our main spy guy in the first one. After the events of the first one, he gets moved up to be director of the Sigma Force. So he spends the entirety of the book back in Washington, D.C. directing the people on the field. Being as this is the first book with him as director, we do spend a little bit of time in his mind kind of figuring out how to be a director after spending so many years in the field and kind of how that transition happens. So I thought that was a really interesting kind of little bit of tidbit characterization to be able to get into, starting from this book and going on through the rest of the series. The books I actually remember reading, the last probably, probably the last 3 to 4 books are the ones that I actually remember reading. He is pretty well versed in being a director. He's very confident in the role and very comfortable with the team of operatives he's created. Kind of interesting to see him struggle a little bit in this first book. Or second book. The next character I'll talk about is our new main spy guy, our new kind of main POV, and that is Commander Gray Pierce. He has an interesting relationship with his family. His dad was an engineer in the oil fields and very man's man, Texas, yeehaw, men don't cry, and now his dad is dealing with early onset dementia, so kind of that is a difficult family dynamic for them to kind of deal with. You definitely see that with Gray, his own struggle with being in touch with his feelings and having that be not necessarily something that he was encouraged to do growing up. Definitely an interesting backstory for this character. But other than that, he's a pretty kind of stereotypical action hero. He's very confident, very, very impulsive, but very, very smart. He does have, like a PhD in chemistry, as well as being, I don't remember which arm of the Special Forces he came from, but obviously big burly dude, but also very smart. The next character we have is Monk. He is Commander Gray Pierce's best friend. They hang out together, they work out together, and he's kind of the funny guy to Gray's very straight man, straight lace guy. So he's kind of our funny sidekick throughout the book, but obviously still extremely smart. I think his field of science is like forensics and anatomy sort of stuff, kind of biomedical field in general. So he's definitely, you know, a good one to have around, just kind of the funny guy who breaks the tension that can kind of build up when you have a very serious, straight-laced main character. And then the third operative from Sigma we have going on this mission is Kat. She is very much like Gray, like very serious, very straightforward, but even more of a rule. I guess she's not necessarily as impulsive. She's very much a by-the-books rule follower. She came from naval intelligence and worked with the Navy SEAL teams during intelligence missions, and she is working on a PhD, I think, in engineering and geology. Obviously still very smart. But in this book, she is one of the characters that continue on through the series, but in this book, she's very kind of one note. She's very serious, very on track, we gotta keep following all the rules of how we should be doing these things. But she does definitely get better throughout the rest of the series, so it was kind of interesting to see how her characterization does get so much better throughout the rest of the series. So in addition to our Sigma Force studying this kind of crazy occurrence at this Catholic church in Germany, we have representatives from the Vatican itself. The first one is Vigor. He is a priest and also a professor of kind of religious studies in Catholicism. So he's kind of our know-it-all of all of the Catholic things we have to deal with within this book. And with Vigor, we also have his niece Rachel, who works for the art theft department of Interpol. So it is her job to track down stolen art pieces and track down art thieves in general. The way she gets tied into this is that the burglars/murderers from that Catholic church up in Germany stole this ancient relic from the church itself, and so she gets kind of involved that way. So that's kind of our cast of good guys. Now we'll get to some of my favorite parts of James Rowland's novels, and that is the bad guys. And along with being some of my favorite parts, this book also introduces my absolute favorite character in the entire series. Her name is Seishan. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'll have it spelled out here on the screen. But she is an assassin for the shadowy criminal organization known as the Guild. The Guild tends to be the overarching bad guy in the entire series, even if they aren't necessarily directly involved in the plot of each book. In fact, in this book, she's kind of hired as a mercenary to work kind of for the bad guys, but she's also kind of like helping out Sigma Force. We don't really know why she's here, what she's doing, why she's sometimes helping the bad guys, but sometimes helping the good guys. It's crazy. We don't know what's going on. But my absolute favorite thing about Seishan, and I think just kind of summing up her character as a whole, my favorite trope in fiction, absolute favorite, be it movies, books, comics, whatever, is the evil billionaire genius and his unhinged assassin lady. Like, that's just my favorite dynamic. Every movie I see it in, every book I read it in, I just love it. And Seishan's she's kind of like that whole trope in one. Like, she is this calculating genius. She is always one step ahead of our good guys. She's always laying traps for them no matter where they go, no matter how far ahead they think they are. She's there, she's ready, she's got them. But she's also this crazy talented assassin, is a sharpshooter and can throw knives and knows all these martial arts and is just a crazy cool fighter. So I just love her. She's just so great. I just love everything about her. She's so good. And then finally, we have one of my not favorite villains that I've read in the series, but his name is Raoul. He is a literal Nazi eugenicist. So right off the bat, we know he's real bad. And my major critique of this book kind of has to revolve around his character. I had mentioned in my kind of critiques of the first book that women are not necessarily treated super fairly in this series, especially in these earlier books. I think it gets a lot better as the series progresses and as time kind of progresses. But specifically around the character of Raoul, he brutalizes women sexually and physically as kind of a shorthand to the reader so that we know that he's a real bad guy. But I think the fact that he is a literal Nazi eugenicist, probably enough to like tip us off that he's not great. So I don't think it was really necessary to have that kind of brutalization of women enveloped in this book. So that's kind of my main critique of this book. I have a couple other things that I will discuss throughout the rest of this review, but that's kind of our main cast of characters. So let's move on to my other favorite part of the books, and that is the science/history. In this one, the kind of science topic that we're dealing with is monoatomic gold or white gold powder, or I think there's a bunch of different names for it. When this book came out, that was kind of like a new thing they were discovering, but as time went on and I recently looked into trying to find some more scholarly articles on this M-state gold powder or monoatomic gold powder, it's been kind of debunked. It's not really real science. So, you know, that's fine. I mean, that's the chance you take when you are working with newer discoveries. And especially this whole series kind of verges on sci-fi more than it does kind of adventure thriller. So I'm willing to kind of give the benefit of the doubt to these books when it comes to being super scientifically accurate. The history portion of this book is also really tied into that M-state gold or monoatomic gold, and I think this is something he's kind of directly, I don't want to say ripped or stolen or whatever, but it's something that he was directly inspired by. That was new kind of scholarly articles coming out at the time about how this M-state gold could be the manna referred to in the Bible, and one of the gifts that was given to the baby Jesus,
dear Lord baby Jesus,
during his birth, when the wise men came and gave him gifts. So that's kind of the history portion of it too, is following this journey of the Magi from India to Nazareth and kind of how they tie into the larger history of that area as a whole. And also we got a lot of Alexander the Great history in here, which was kind of fun. But being as the history portion was a lot in reference to like India and like the Middle East and Nazareth, but the actual plot took place in kind of the Mediterranean. So we were in Italy, and well, I guess they started in Germany and kind of made their way down to Italy and also made their way over to like Egypt and France. So we spent a lot of time in the Mediterranean, which leads to my next largest critique about this book, and that it's just very, very reminiscent of like Angels and Demons and the Da Vinci Code. I've listened to a couple interviews with this author, and he said he kind of got his big break because of the popularity of the Da Vinci Code. Knowing that and knowing the reason his first book got published is because it had kind of some similar elements to the Da Vinci Code, he really leaned in hard with this one, and it is very, very much, it feels a lot like the Da Vinci Code, especially with all of the scenes that take place in Rome, and kind of the way they connect clues together is very, very much a reach and feels very Robert Langdon-esque. That's where we are with this one. It's very Da Vinci Code in a way that I think Sandstorm kind of avoided taking place more in the Middle East. So I think with that, I can kind of roll into my overall concluding thoughts on this book. I still really enjoyed it. Like, I think I'm gonna just really enjoy rereading all of these. They hold so much nostalgia and just fun for me. But this one I did end up having to give a 4 out of 5 stars just because, I mean, I didn't have quite as much nostalgia for this as like the first one. My major critiques being the portrayal of women and the similarity to Da Vinci Code, I did have to knock off a star. I can't just give all of these 5 stars. They can't all be my favorite. And this one unfortunately just kind of fails to really spark the same excitement and intrigue and originality that I have come to expect from these Sigma Force novels. Most of these are like nothing I've read before and something that I can't really find in other authors' works. The fact that this one felt so similar to something else I've read was kind of a bummer. And I think as a whole, if I were to start recommending this series to other people the way I have with some of the later books, this is still not where I would tell people to start. I don't know quite where I'm gonna tell people to start yet, especially if you are looking to avoid a lot of the early 2000s racial and sexist issues that you're gonna find in a lot of kind of early 2000s works written by men. Once I get there, I will let you know which one to start with. This one's still not it, but it's still a fun time. So that is all I have for the second installment of the Sigma Force series. I am very excited to be starting the third one soon, and I will definitely let you know my thoughts on that. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next video.